Hello everybody, thank you so much for showing up and hanging in until the end of Thursday. We've got some really great speakers, so I'm really glad that you're all here. I'm not Michelle Mandel, I'm Rebecca Everard from Cleanaway. I'm standing in for Michelle because she's been called away. So yes, thanks for joining us for collection initiatives. As you probably are familiar with by now, everybody gets about 20 minutes to speak. I'm going to hold all the questions until the end so that we can, hopefully have enough time left over to have, a really good question and answer time. Just a reminder as well that at the end when we do have question time, please wait until you've got the mic before you ask your question, because we do have an online audience and they can't hear you if you don't have the mic. Please ensure your mobile phones are turned off or on silent. So our first speaker for today is Mark Lee, who is the Acting Director of Procurement for ACT NoWaste. He's got a very varied career and has worked in lots of different industries, including as a primary school teacher and a dietitian. He's going to be speaking to us today on considerations to preparing a collections procurement.
Well, good afternoon. Thanks, everyone. I'd like to firstly acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land, the Bombaci people. I pay the respects to their elders past, present and emerging. I'd also like to thank them for sharing their culture and knowledge. It's had a profound knowledge on me when they've shared their culture and their generosity in that. Today's presentation is about preparing collection and procurement. I got a late email from Connie to come and talk, and I said, talk about collections. We just released the household collections RFT last week, so it's quite a big tender, and I thought I'd talk a bit about it, but it's also about an issue. So I try to weave in some of those collection initiatives that we built into the procurement, share a lot of our lessons learned. So yesterday we heard a lot of perspectives from JJ Richards and Arcadis about collection RFTs, tenders, and hopefully this kind of aligns with it. It's and a lot of they said definitely does make sense. About what the do's and do nots. And for me, it's been quite a journey to come from teaching and dietetics to writing procurement. It's quite a unique language, and it's certainly very hard to write a narrative into tenders when it's such a specific type of language as well. I also like to draw on some of the themes and try and make some parallels with the themes of this conference. So collaboration and what Costa said about narratives. I think narratives are really important to progress an RFT really successfully within the organisation and then out to market. Trying to tell a narrative to get your stakeholders to understand what you're trying to do is really quite important, getting the stakeholders together as well. So with that, a quick story. Connie asked me to present, and I was wondering, how am I going to start this off with a story? And I think one of the observations is that bin collections is a little bit of a dry topic, but it is really a privilege in a modern society that we have bins picked up on the curbside. We go and buy our groceries, eat them, consume it, and then it's out of sight, out of mind. We put it in our bins, someone collects it. It's a huge privilege. In Asia, where my relatives are from, there's much more to manage in terms of that waste management. So when the bin collection came around in the morning, my kids, my 4 and 7-year-old daughters, love going to the window and watching the truck come and pick up the bins. I think every kid likes that. There's a real diesel chatter and the hydraulic noises, and I don't know. It's very attractive to them. So I just commented to my wife, bin collections make the world go round, and I think I'm going to try and weave that into this presentation, trying to pass on the learnings I have to help things go around in the collections RFT, or any RFT really. And perhaps helping you guys think of some of the things that you might want to consider when thinking about a collection procurement or any procurement. So first up, setting the scene. Like I said, we had an RFT that just got released, so I'm just going to try and be careful in what I say about such a live process. So if there are questions, I might just put up my hand and use a probity card and go, oh, I'll put that question on notice. So a quick rundown of the ACT context. It's in Canberra. We have around 140,000 curbside households, 40,000 on-site collected households. We use the 3-bin system. We have a bulky waste based on a booking system. And we have a growing population with increasing urban density. Our planning strategy has a lot on trying to build multi-unit developments within the corridors, the main corridors of the city. So that creates even more of a challenge for collection providers. MUD itself is going to be hard. Put them on a corridor and you've got, high levels of traffic as well. So that's something that, this procurement or, this narrative is trying to consider as well. In terms of our facilities, we've got, we're a little bit landlocked, so we do manage our own facilities. We've got our landfill site. We did have a MRF that had an accident in Christmas. So that's something that we're trying to build as well. We've got 2 transfer stations, one in the north side and one near the landfill. And one of our biggest priorities is to build a FOGO facility, roll out FOGO to the rest of the city. We've got a FOGO pilot to around 5,000 households, 4 suburbs in Belconnen. And we're hoping to move on from that to the rest of the city. Some of our biggest commitments, I spoke about FOGO, is zero emissions vehicles. The government has said they wanted to roll out a full collection vehicle fleet by the mid-2030s, so it's highly ambitious. So that's, again, part of that narrative, part of the priorities we're trying to work through in this procurement as well. Another interesting piece of the context is that we did have an Auditor General review of our contracts a few years ago, and what they found was that we really needed to have more flexibility in the way we manage performance, and we also should try and look at efficiencies by reducing the number of contracts that we have in managing waste. So those are kind of the themes that we started off on. Obviously, doing procurement is renewing the services as well. So quickly, the objectives, and I think most collection procurements will have similar objectives, and I'll just rattle off on them very quickly. We've got an essential waste collection service. It needs to continue. It's not something that can stop. We've got a priority to transition to FOGO, and that will depend on when our FOGO facilities is online. We've got on-demand bulky waste services. We've got bins, bulk bins, and we've also got the custom interface aspect, so people talk about that as in terms of education and engagement, but I think it's probably more than that as well. And then we've got the focus on emission reductions. So I think in terms of finding the objectives in a procurement project, it's really important to really work this out early on in the piece so that you know exactly what you're trying to do, and then you can build on the narrative, know what your risks are, know what your issues are, and really bring on the executives, bring on your stakeholders on board as well. In terms of a procurement objective, obviously it's trying to renew the service, maximise value for money, get the best out of your responses as well. So trying to give them as much information as you can. In terms of the project outcome, it's once the contract's signed, you really want to try and have a great relationship with your contractor as well. And there's a lot of talk about collaboration and partnerships, and it's really, it is a contract. It's really hard to have that deep relationship at the same time. So looking for opportunities to actually genuinely share risks and genuinely collaborate is quite challenging, I think, because at the end of the line, you've got a service and then you've got a fee against it as well. So that's something that I think is challenging in this space, to have form one of those genuine partnerships, but at the same time, they can happen as well. When you can simply just pick up the phone and say, hey, can we do this? And they go, yeah, great, we can do it. And that's really excellent, because you're sharing information, you're trying to be transparent with each other as well. So just a bit on, I suppose, governance and project planning, or the procurement space that we're on. We, as Nick Page said yesterday, try and plan really early. he said 24 months in advance, and I would say even more than that. There's at times a lot of inertia in projects like this, and it's hard to kind of shift that inertia. But we did start off with a lot of research at the start of our journey. We spoke with a lot of our in-house experts, we spoke to incumbents, we spoke with other councils, other organisations like the New South Wales EPA. We looked at a lot of guidelines, we looked at a lot of different procurements and tried to get an understanding of the service flow, the service models out there, what people were trying to do, and really just simply gathering lessons learned. And I think when you get to the point where you're hearing a lot of the same thing again, you go, okay, well, I think I might be pretty close to understanding the issues and problems. So yeah, we did start early. We started, I think, in 2020, and obviously that's more than 2 years ago. But I think in a project like this, there is a lot of inertia, and in a way, I'm not sure that there's better ways to manage that, but bringing on that narrative is something that will help you get your decision makers to come to a decision earlier or push things through. In terms of stakeholders, there are a lot of stakeholders to coordinate, and I've said that to some of the stakeholders here that I engage with already, and I thank them for their patience. But we engage subject matter experts, we engage probity and legal advisors as well, and it's been very helpful to have them on board, and you need to be able to share that narrative with them as well, and actually bring on some of those issues and risks, and actually have them part of that conversation so that they can help you come up with some of those solutions as well. So in procurement for the ACT, I think it's going to be pretty similar concepts, but we've got what's called a government procurement board. Any procurements over the $5 million threshold, we need to take that to the board for review and endorsement. Those are big milestones for procurements in the ACT, but I imagine there'll be similar milestones like that for other procurements as well. I kind of want to just quickly jump back to stakeholder coordination as well. Kate at the very start of the conference said, use that African proverb of saying you can go fast but go alone, but you can also go far and work together. And I was just talking to someone else in the break and saying it's actually really helpful to kind of use that as a bit of a spectrum and say, I'll manage my quality of the work by bringing people together, but when you really need to get things out, outputs coming out, you can move back to a smaller team and get things out quicker, and then go back out to the broader crowd again, your subject matter experts, and share what you've been doing, and then work on that quality again. So it's just a kind of observation in this project space. Along with the usual project and procurement scheduling and issues, gaps and risks are really important to have. Really important to get those things out of the way early, and continue to go back and look at those registers and update them and build on them as well, because I find that they actually change a lot from the beginning to the end, and it's good to kind of map out the whole process yourself and work off all that information. So procurement considerations in the ACT, we've got a really strong market in terms of collection providers. We've got 4 big operators in the area, but I think for other council areas, you've really got to consider what's available in your local market. So what we did was that we did a bit of a market analysis. So I'll just go back to my notes. I might just go back to my issues, gaps and risks, because I just want to touch on some of the issues that we had. So some of the gaps that we had was what sort of time it took to mobilise the service. So when we go out to market, how long does it take for the trucks to come along? There was that COVID interruption as well. We've got a depot that's currently been provided to the incumbent, and we want to know whether the new contractor would like to use the depot as well. We want to know what the zero emissions vehicle capability in the market was, and also what sort of capability they had for FOGO. But overall, we really wanted to know how much interest they had. So what we did was we did a market sounding activity through a request for information. A request for information is it comes with its own risk as well. It's something that's not mandatory for the market to respond to, but it's something that isn't as resource intensive for them to have a whole tender team to look at. So, it's a good tool to use, and it's actually helped us a lot because we found that everyone was interested. They provide a lot of feedback. But again, if you're asking pointed questions at times, really, really commercially sensitive questions, you may not get that response. So you kind of have to be prepared for not getting all the information that you'll get. So with all that in mind, we consider the term of the contract to be around the conversations we had around the 8 to 10 year mark. We looked at the RFT as the best option for us. We knew the majority of our specification, but we also, looking back at the Auditor General recommendations, decided to bundle all our services together. So the red, yellow, green streams together, the bulky waste together, the bins all together as well. So I'll move very quickly, I'm getting that tap. So there was some talk about collection models. I think it's really important that you guys, look at your objectives about resource recovery. Is it balance between resource recovery, customer services, or price as well? So just quickly on the FOGO pilot that we rolled out, we used the New South Wales EPA model of fortnightly red bin 140 litre collection, and that's actually surprisingly worked out really well in terms of the resource recovery. We've had lower red bin volumes overall, we've had a very low contamination rate, and we've had more than a 50% diversion rate as well. So I might not be able to talk about specifics of that data, but we're expecting to release some of those results in the coming months. The service models, for us, we need to consider the staging of services because the FOGO facility will come out at a later time. So you really need to think about your price model that can support a later stage as well. I think we talked a lot about existing facilities and contamination. I won't go into that too much. Performance, there was a bit of talk about performance yesterday, and I just want to outline that we've considered performance to be really important. We started to adopt a bit more of a balanced scorecard approach. We still use the outcomes-based, performance-based approach, but in doing so, the balanced scorecard approach lets us look across the plans much more, looking at the standards of the outcomes rather than discrete KPIs. We do base them on what the plans say rather than setting an excessive standard. It just needs to be able to do what it needs to do. It needs to be able to service the bins according to schedule, and that's really what you need. I'll just quickly touch on the evaluation. It's really something that you guys, if you do consider it, allocate enough time for evaluation. Brief your panel members about the actual SOR. These SORs are really big, and they provide very in-depth plans, so you should allocate a significant amount of time for it. Most of the times, I think the weighted criteria are aligned to the responses in the way the plans are going to be provided. But in our one, we've actually put in innovation criteria. We want them to have a bit of an RFP approach to this and provide us with some innovative approaches to either customer service or service delivery, emissions, or servicing it was zero emissions and resource recovery. So I think there's a lot of opportunities out there above and beyond just the curbside collections to bring in some of those aspects. I'll just quickly go through some of we chose to use the New South Wales EPA's approach with the portions that they have. But I just want to quickly touch upon some of the, I suppose, the initiatives that we've put in. We've put in a bit of detail around having a bit of a governance group, setting up a bit of a terms of reference between the other contractors, particularly the recycler and the FOGO facility, coming together with a bit of a terms of reference and talking about, are there any proposals that these groups can bring forward to improve resource recovery. We've put in some specification of zero emissions vehicles. We know there's going to be limitations, but if you don't ask, you don't get as well. We put in some alignment to a reconciliation action plan within our own reconciliation action plan. And we've also put in some things around surveys, audits, and things like that. Business continuity is a big thing in this area, and in the ACT we have temporary drop-off sites when there are interruptions, and we've actually put that in the specification that can we set up temporary drop-off sites as well in this contract. 30 seconds? Okay. So pricing, yeah, well, I think what Nick said, it's really important to have separate lines for each pricing and implementation. What we've got is, after the contract's signed off, we want them to actually build their plans to be much more site-specific as well, or service-specific. Takeaway, just running out of time. Some of the takeaways for this process was, make sure you map out the plan, map out the whole process, bringing other people, managing stakeholders, coordinate and communicate frequently, bring them into the narrative. Use your committees to drive decisions and check on your quality assurance. Use your committees to move the inertia as well, and just check in with each other really frequently. We're working from home, we're working online. It's really important to have that communication line right across. So, sorry, I used a lot of time. Thank you.
Thanks so much for that, Mark, for a ring in at the last minute. You did a great job. Next up, we have Gordon Ewart from CurbCycle, Director of CurbCycle, and talking about post-consumer soft plastics to bin or not to bin. I know, a very controversial topic. Very exciting. Looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Thank you, Rebecca. Mark, good talk, and I couldn't agree with you more. One of the things you said during that, which I totally agree with, and it's the councils that have that curbside facility, the bin, and it is a privilege. When I came here in the 80s from Singapore, we didn't have any curbside recycling bin. It was collection centres which actually started. Just going a little history, you all went to, I think, the 60s party yesterday, so hopefully everyone's still awake. Going a little bit back in time to start in the 50s, was the first ever polyethylene plant that started in Texas by DuPont. That started producing. In 1960, we had about 3 million tonnes of polyethylene being produced in the world. In 1969, we had about 40 million tonnes. Today, we have 440 million tonnes of plastics being produced, put into the environment every year. Albeit, we do have a way to gather that material. And in late 1980s, early 1990s, councils, a lot of councils here today, started that curbside recycling. And it's the most effective collection system bar none. And what the topic is today, and why I went from one end to the other, is that we are talking about post-consumer soft plastics, as Rebecca says, a controversy. And it is something that is, would you put it in the bin or not the bin? So the question here is, and I clicked to the next one, hopefully I'm going to get there. Yeah, here we go, thank you. So, to bin or not to bin? That is the question. And you can see here Hamlet considering, what should I do with that soft plastics? So there's sort of two schools of thought at the moment. And as with everything, it's always good to have a binary situation. We have a yes and we have a no. So in the yes corner, we have certainly a very strong position that was put yesterday by AFGC. The trial's being undertaken. and certainly they're looking strongly at using the curbside bin. And on the no position, WAMRA has been very, very clear. Two sort of main topics in thinking there is one, soft plastics is going to cause confusion to the public. You know, as I said, we've been using curbside recycling since the late 1980s. Don't put soft plastics in the yellow bin has been certainly the firm position, and there's a concern about that and what it might do to other commodities and other things. The second part of it is we need to have a market, and obviously with what happened to RedCycle and the lack of end markets is the other key concern. So in this, what I'm seeking to do is sort of have a discussion about that, and then obviously put that question to everyone else as well, because it is a key question, and I'll step through the slides accordingly. So.
Australia's soft plastics industry is now on notice to stop filling up landfill and get serious about recycling. With our nation failing dismally on plastic recycling targets, the Albanese government is now threatening to force manufacturers to act as a matter of law.
If they don't lift their game, I will regulate.
I like that our country is now being pushed into a corner to make change, and I hope it happens.
Otherwise...
And I think that's part of the consideration. As you can see here, the Chinese characters spell or write the word crisis, which I think soft plastics is an important crisis, both as the word danger, and I think there's a great danger for us as an industry, for councils particularly as the gatekeeper to recycling, of losing confidence and having people just not believing that things are happening. That's part of the danger. The opportunity is to be a catalyst for change, to use this crisis as a catalyst for change and to get the best outcomes. So with that, the Kirby side of things, just to sort of, why do I have an interest in this and what is Kirby's role in all this? We've actually kicked off in 2019, first came together with Nestle. 2020, we put together a trial with the Central Coast, which took householders through a new experience. Given that we thought there might be some innovation to the yellow bin, we felt that we have to do this responsibly, and if we're going to put a new material in the yellow bin, which is 5 or 6% of the red bin, and we want to move it across to the yellow, we need to do it in a considered way. So we put together the Kirby experience, which was not just a bag, but it was also a QR system, which is a variable QR, which guides community through the recycling process using the yellow bin to recycle soft plastic. So community, you can see here, placed it into to a bag. They place a QR coded tag over the top, which secures it. In time to come, it also guides community through that experience. When it gets to the MRF, it gets scanned. We understand how much of that material makes it through the journey, so we have very good data on that. And we also use this to give an experience to householders. So rather than just dropping it in the bin and that's all that happens, Kirby sends a message saying, hey, Kirby's excited to get your bag. And there's a journey beyond that, which has actually been something that we found the community has received really, really well. We've given a little bit more to the experience. We've actually put a payload tag inside on the bales, so we follow it through the journey to get that provenance through the process. The final part of it, and this is for stakeholders like the Nestle's, Unilever's, Mars, the FGC, those that I think, you know, again, the council is the gatekeeper for community to the curbside bin, but it shouldn't just all weigh on community. It should be that the producers are coming in to support these programs. And certainly, hopefully this is what we'll see with the AFGC and the National Plastic Recycling Scheme as we go forward. At the same time, they need to know, specifically with what's happened previously, that it is actually going to the right end outcomes, and there's that transparency through the process. And so we've designed the Kirby dashboard to provide that transparency. That's the Kirby platform, that's the bits side of things. Obviously, we have to be very conscious about the atoms. Where does it actually go and what does it actually make? And I'll talk to that a little further in. So we're in 5 councils, 26,000 households, Central Coast, Newcastle, Tamworth, with IQ Renew, partner MRF there, and Cora and AFGC in City of Adelaide and Port Enfield, Adelaide as well. So you can see here we've got a heat map of who's engaged, and without going to all the details, there's a high correlation between socio-economic and other drivers. And I think if we were to put a reward in, these tags being the golden ticket, we could actually put some incentive into the process, similar to a CDS inside the yellow bin. So we could actually provide a gamification of that, and that's actually where we want to go longer term. Clearly there's a lot of things to do first, but we're very conscious of building the platform for that future case when we actually want more. And hopefully in a couple of years' time, we're talking about how do we get the percentage recycling rates up, because we've got the processing in place. So we actually have got an enormous response from community. We have a hugely highly engaged community. And in fact, we're very conscious about being able to respond to them. So we use a Salesforce interface, and we have a great crew that actually just responds to all the queries we get. And what we were quite stunned by is community was scanning without any incentives or rewards, just wanting to participate. And so they were scanning and giving us the bags all the way through. We actually, for this conference, went to them and said, hey, what do you think, guys? We're about to talk with a lot of the councils and key stakeholders and waste contractors and recyclers around Australia. What do you think's important? And we were absolutely humbled by the 3,000 or almost 3,000 responses we got in 9 days, including 1,300 direct written responses. And through some brilliant analysis by some of the key Kirby team, we learned that there's an association between Kirby and councils. There's a non-Kirby councils and the Kirby councils. We found that they were feeling happy and lucky to be a Kirby council. We're actually stunned because in some respects, look, they were upset that we didn't promote more. We really are conscious. We can only expand at the pace of the processing in the end markets, and we're working hard on that. I'll turn to that in a moment. The demand for the program, it should go nationwide was their view. They wanted to see it, and they want to see it nationwide. And this beautiful little one of the Kirby and non-Kirby councils, they had friends bringing soft plastics to them from non-Kirby councils so they could recycle in the yellow bin inside the Kirby council area. Really stunning outcome, and we feel very lucky. We did ask a few specific questions. 99% unsurprisingly, and I think we all share that, concerned about the situation with soft plastics, given that it's such an issue into the marine environments and alike, and so 85% were extremely concerned. We had a situation, 90% wanted government and the packages to do more. I found this one really interesting, and I think you can say the earn one is probably at the heart of it, but 78% wanted to see a return and earn type of arrangement for soft plastics going forward. 61% perceived the limited processing facilities. I can't agree with them more, and we're working hard on that. 57% would be willing to pay a small amount for the products, as long as the environmental impacts are taken care of. So what we've had to date is up to 24% of community participating, 10% on average. It's about every bin run, every 14 days we're seeing a bag put in the bin. The bags are between 400 and 500 grams, 330,000 bags to date. 142 tonnes we've taken through and processed inside New South Wales, and we've got a partnership as well in Victoria on the processing. This one I like, because the whole point of this is a journey of connecting community with industry through innovation. I met up with one of the former ministers who likened the waste industry to energy 40 years ago and water about 20 years ago. There's a very big disconnect between the service provider and the serviced. So we're actually seeking to make that connection, be able to communicate back. And that was really, I think, a great example of that was metals. So the little metal on an ice bag or a chicken bag, and in isolation, they're tiny and people don't think about it. When you look at that picture there, that's a magnet that it's full of metal, which when it got shredded, ended up in the final product. So we had metal shredded into the final product. So, and we've got a stunning reaction to that, and because we can communicate to the opt-in, they can drop that, and that's that two-way communication rather than a fridge magnet and relying on that every couple of years. That's done through notifications and much more responsive. We have one of the key things, and this is now going inside the MRF and the contractors, and I can see some MRFs here, is about the cross-contamination. We're very, very mindful of that. And we've done audits all the way through over the last couple of years on the fibre line. And they've got the best outcome they've had in 6 years on their fibre. Their fibre is cleaner than ever, and it has not impacted it. So we've found that there's no concerns whatsoever on the fibre line at this stage in respect of any cross-contamination. Now, going to the second part of this, it is important that we have developed end markets, and it's important that we have a mix of solutions. What we've done is we did optical sorting, so decontamination, optical sorting, and found the best use cases during offtake integration trials. We participated, for instance, with Icella on a prototype to get the KitKat wrapper produced back in 2021, I think it was, Andrea, yeah? And we have found that physical recycling pathways in the meantime, whilst the chemical recycling facilities are stood up, is the way to go. And so we're focusing on that with the bottom fraction or the whole mixed bag into what we're calling remade durable, and I'll explain what processing we have there, but that is a very tolerant agricultural construction sort of products that can tolerate a mixed polymer. And I'll explain what those sort of products are. The other side of things, on the top fraction, we're collaborating with IQ&U on getting a very clean stream of light polyethylene, which is capable of, and I'll flick to the next one. So that goes through a process of being shredded, decontaminated, optically sorted, and then put in the different polymer types. You can see there the RPE flake, that's actually about 98, 99% recovered polyethylene, I should say, rather than using the three-letter acronyms, TLAs. What you can see here, we did Australian trials, we dried it, we washed it, then dried it, and then had the extrusion of it. That was interesting, I could say.
You can't feel any moisture, and we will definitely get a good quality, and I also do not expect a lot of contamination which has to be filtered out. And I think it's going to be a good test run with a good result.
So that was always done impressively. European accents always, with the technical adeptness that they have. That was a washed sample of polyethylene, and that was just before it was placed into the extruder to create the resin. Okay, we're just at the point, and I would have loved to have had the example here in my hands, but I couldn't get to Europe and back in time to provide that to you at the conference. I hope next year we can show you the delivered product. We are actually moving from moulded products, we can get to a very fine-tuned moulded products. We're working currently now on blown film products, which are more consumer focused and about restoring confidence to community. So remade durable is about, I'll click through this a little quicker, is creating industrial products that are tolerant to a mixed polymer. I'll go back a bit. And we're focusing on post and sleepers, which are solid post and sleepers, great for agricultural use in vineyards. Others, New Zealand did a tremendous job at standing back up the soft plastic recycling scheme over there with post. We are a believer that it's good to take known technologies for certainty, for end markets, and we've had a great reception to post being delivered into the New South Wales market, particularly and across Australia. We have a site in northern New South Wales where we're installing this equipment. We also have equipment landing in June, which is doing those industrial additives and making that material. So overall, just on transparency and accountability, so we have a situation where in the market it's been hard to get to good products because we need to actually not have contaminants in there. So PVC, PVDC and PET are really difficult materials to recycle. They're also difficult materials to extract, even through optical sorting, particularly on the PVDC. So we know that APCO are working on it, but obviously we would like to see that gets out of the mix, and we can't even tell our Kirby participants not to put it in because, unfortunately, the messaging and the labelling isn't up to it at this stage. So we can't, I was talking to a reporter recently on an article that will come out shortly, and he's going, well, how do you tell, Gordon, people not to put PVDC into a Kirby bag? I can't. There's no way. So we really need to get it out of the mix or improve labelling or both. The other one is about sustainability and being real about what we're talking about on the recycling process. You look at a bag versus a recycled plastic bag, look at a recycled plastic bag used for recycling and reusing, and actually one that might, and this is the future maybe, guiding people to what to do with that bag so it has the best possible reuse or recycling purpose. That's the sort of direction we would like to take that so that every bag in Australia is an opportunity to improve recycling and reuse. And that's really where we want to get to in the next year or two. So choosing the right sustainable pathway is an important thing. There's obviously a lot of people thinking about that, and clearly it's something we want to try and make the right moves as we move forward with this. The last one is sort of twofold. It's accountability and the claims made. Obviously, and look, there's a whole bunch of brands involved in all this. ACCC did their study, and there's a lot of questions about the labelling and that sort of things. The second thing, what we're finding hard is we're putting a lot of investment, time, money, effort into getting a post-consumer material out there. But I could tell you we've been to plants all around the world, and they say, hey, we're making post-consumer, you visit, and they're not. And so how do we make sure that we have that level playing field and people are really dealing with the difficult stuff? Ultimately, where do we get to on the outcome? Well, there's sort of twofold. There's a Hamlet thinking about his soft plastic bag and what he should do with it. Someone said it looked like me, and I thought that was very generous. I haven't had that much of a diet. So firstly, there's the absence of market. Now, this is a work in progress, so I'm not trying to say to everyone in this room that today we have a market ready to receive in the bin the material. But I would say to you, within 12 months, I would suggest we'll be in the other side of things and we'll be looking for more material. So really, it's about believing that we are going to do that, and this is Tanya Plibersek saying that we're expanding our capacity all the time, and that this is Kirby, is commissioning facilities later this year, and then there's the National Plastic Recycling Scheme in development. The middle one is in the MRFs. Both the collector soft plastics, you can get a good quality of community, and they'll give it to you, and second thing, it doesn't cross-contaminate. Finally, the other side of it is the materials. We've been educating people not to put it in the bin. Well, let's do it the right way. And the quote there is been telling them to put it loose in the bin. The problem is loose is not always good, particularly with soft plastics. Wind-blown, even the best of intentions, wind-blown litter in a heartbeat if it's a windy day and it blows out. So we've had a beautiful response from our Kirby community. They love it and they want to be part of it. And we would love to get it across more councils. There is a way, going back to Mark's point, of doing a service innovation under existing contracts, and we'd love to do some trials in service innovation, bring in brands, bring in support, bring in investment.
We are expanding our recycling capacity all the time.
And expand our recycling capacity.
Thank you to Central Coast Council for supporting the Kirby program. I think it's a great initiative, great idea, and another step towards helping the planet for these little ones. Thank you.
He makes my spine shiver every time I see him because it is really about that. So to finalise it, to bin or not to bin, that is the question, whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the confusion of outdated education, or to collect and recycle a sea of waste, and by re-educating, build a sustainable future. Full disclosure, ChatGPT, prompted by me, inspired by Shakespeare. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Gordon. That was really interesting. I'm sure there's lots of questions for later. Next up, we have Amanda Bombaci. Amanda is from Western Sydney Regional Organisation of Councils, also known as WESROC. She has been there for quite a while, and she's talking to us today on revisiting planning controls to enable organics collection services in apartments.
Thanks, Brett. Okay, so just to give you a bit of overview of what I'll be talking about today, it is a little bit different to the other presentations. We did a bit of research, I'll talk about that, I'll talk about the design solutions that we found, some recommendations for things we all need to do going forward, and look at some draft planning controls as well. Basically, this started because we're seeing more and more apartments, more than we actually thought when we looked at the data. We have a MUDS officer group in Western Sydney that brings together the council officers looking specifically at the challenges of MUDs and RFBs. They've done a lot of work looking at waste and recycling, and then WASM came out and FOGO is now on the agenda. So in sitting around and discussing how we're going to roll that out, building on some of the previous work that we had done with councils, looking at improving waste and recycling and bulky waste within apartments, they suddenly came up with the realisation we need to do something about FOGO, even though we have, realistically, most of us will not be rolling it out for a number of years to come. And the reason we need to look at this now is because in all of the progressive changes and all of the work that they had done to date on waste recycling and bulky waste, it takes years to come to fruition. So looking at potential rollout dates for FOGO, everyone in the room realised that we needed to look at this yesterday. So the first question that came up was, who's actually done FOGO or FO in apartments in New South Wales, and what can we learn from them when we go to revisit our planning controls? So we reached out to quite a number of councils around New South Wales and a few interstate as well. So about 3/4 of these councils have introduced FOGO, or done a trial looking at food waste collection in apartments. And we use the word apartments as a collective, talking about medium density and low rise apartments, all the way up to your high and large scale residential flat buildings and precincts. We also reached out to a number of councils within our area and within neighbouring councils in metropolitan Sydney who've done quite progressive work looking at developmental controls and looking at their own planning controls, and made quite a number of changes on other waste services and really understand what can and can't be done within this space. So we're able to talk to them as knowing what they know about FOGO and what might work and what might not work. So what did we find and what did it look like from these conversations? So the first thing that the council said was there is a very clear distinction about rolling out a trial or a service to existing buildings and buildings that are just coming online. So buildings that have just been constructed and have been designed with some kind of planning control. So that is a really big distinction, and it really changes the way that we approach this. There's obviously a clear differentiation between a FO service and a FOGO service that needs to be considered, whether it's a trial or it's an ongoing service. And most of the people that we spoke to had done trials in the high rise or may have a service in the medium rise. And what we are actually able to do was a number of councils we approached said, oh no, there's nothing you can learn from us. We've only got 3 buildings. We've only got 4. But then their neighbours had 5 or another neighbour had 3. And by piecing all of these small pieces together, we actually got some learnings from quite a number of buildings. There was a varying collection frequency. So some councils had apartments on the same collection frequency as households, whereas some like the City of Sydney were collecting twice weekly from those buildings. And interestingly, bin sizes changed quite a lot due to the different nature of the food waste. Most councils were using 120s, 140s or 240s, but no councils, even those that use bulk bins, would do so for food waste because of the different nature of the waste. You can't move the bin. Even most councils who use 240s were saying that you really probably couldn't move a full 240 litre bin full of food because of that higher moisture content and higher density. So that was really important. And the last really interesting thing was around the residual waste bin changes, because this is quite different to households. And pretty much every council said, look, we haven't actually changed the residual waste bin. We've left it as it is. We've put in the organics bins, whether they're burgundy bins or green bins, whether they're FO or FOGO, and left the red bin alone. And a lot of that ties into the data around waste generation. And I'll talk on that a little bit later because that's a real challenge. The main themes that we heard over and over again, rather than of their concerns about what this would look like in apartments going forward, were really all around uncertainty of waste generation rates, the residents' views and their concerns. Contamination has a big impact on how the service can actually be delivered. Amenity issues, operational logistics, resource intensity, retrofitting of existing apartments, and also the planning controls. So it was very clear that we needed to get it right first up, and we needed to get the planning controls and the design solutions addressed early in the developmental stage. Amenity came up over and over again. We are talking about a different kind of waste here, to the bulk waste, to the recycling, and to the residual waste. And interestingly, all of the councils said initially they thought it would be quite on par with residual waste. But once you take out the soft plastics and other things and you're just talking about the food waste, it becomes quite a different stream. And that has significant impacts on the amenity, on the odour, on the pests. And obviously that's quite different with the way that's managed in apartments. Space and storage consistently came up as a really important issue that needed to be considered, and the role of design guidelines and how much councils rely on those. Looking at some of those trials and the different solutions came up, you know, we kept coming back to the type of building that we're looking at. We looked at the importance of building managers, and there's other pieces of research that look specifically about the main players who'd be doing this, so I won't touch too much on that. But when we look at these issues, we can't underestimate the value of those building managers and the people in the apartments and not just the residents, because that comes into play later on when you look at your design solution that you might choose. So from all of those conversations, essentially what came out was there's 3 key design solutions. And when I say design solution, I mean there are 3 ways that we can get the organic waste from the front door of that apartment to a bin across all of the different types of high-rise and apartment development types. So you can provide a waste storage room on every residential level. You can have a common disposal point where all residents walk down to a basement or ground floor collection area, or you can have a 3-chute system. What we found was these are not, you don't have to choose one. You can choose some of those, your council can commit to one, but what consistently came up was we cannot prioritise one type of waste stream over the others. So I'm just going to talk quickly a little bit about what needs to be considered when you're thinking about what you might choose to allow within your council area. So if you're looking at a waste storage room provided on every residential level, this is the best option if you want to build participation. You make it easy for the resident, they can access it, it's nice and close, and that allows the resident to really make it easy for them. You don't have far to go. You reduce potentially some of your in-house amenity issues, but it comes at a cost. And what we have to consistently think about when looking at these is where those costs lie. So to do this, there are lots of issues that you might need to address within development controls to address the amenity. It is more costly. You need to look at things like the type of flooring that's used, ventilation, fire safety, when you're looking at the different types of waste that might be in that room. So if you choose this option, you're basically balancing out resident participation versus costs that might be imposed on a developer. And this was probably the most preferred option by councils, because at the end of the day, this gives the residents an easier way to do it and gets a higher resource recovery, and you're getting more food collected this way. But how much luck will councils have asking for these additional costs from developers? The next option is to have a common disposal point. Now, this is a cheaper option for developers, but it also reduces your resident participation, or can reduce your resident participation, and can also potentially reduce the resource recovery that you might get as well. Looking at this, you might need to think about additional options like storage. Many residents have noted they like to empty the bins on the way out. So you need to think about whether you're using liners or not. You can carry a liner down to a basement, but if you carry a caddy, where do you put it? Where do you clean it? So there's lots of different considerations around cleaning, storage and amenity, regardless of which option you choose. And the third option is 3-chute systems. Now, this is not a preferred option of most councils, but there are a number of councils in New South Wales that are actively looking at this, and a number of councils who are talking to developers about how this can potentially be rolled out, and a couple of councils that already have planning controllers that allow this option if it can be demonstrated to work effectively. So keeping in mind all of these challenges and the potential design options for how FOGO can be enabled within apartments, what we came up with was a number of recommendations for councils and for mostly state government to enable all of this to actually occur. So for councils, they wanted to know what could they do, what was within their own control that could get on the front foot, because councils noted that while FOGO is coming, and everyone knows FOGO is coming, whether it's a FO or FO service, most of the development industry does not know it's coming. And most councils are used to developers pushing back on the basic requirements for waste and recycling, and councils want to get on the front foot for FOGO and FO services before they're in place, and before they're in place of neighbouring councils. So there's 2 key ways that councils can do this. They can drive changes to their local environmental plans, and the first thing they can do is update their own LEPs. We heard from Narelle yesterday about how it can be quite challenging, but if you can get it into a higher order strategic document, such as a local environmental plan or a local strategic planning statement, They are mandatory documents, so the outcomes listed in these documents have to be adhered to. And if you can put something in here about achieving resource recovery and optimal, safe, efficient waste services, that can't be ignored. We know that some councils will have real challenge doing this. There are councils that have great relationships with their strategic planning teams and are looking quite holistically at what goes in these documents. And there are others that have real difficulty getting anything within them. And so we're also doing some advocacy looking at around standard requirements to have councils address this within their LEPs. Councils can also update their own DCPs, and this gets into a little bit more specifics around exactly what a council would like to enable the organic waste collection services within different residential developments. So councils can update their own DCPs with the specifics of the design solutions that they will allow in their area. And they can also talk to their neighbouring councils and work out what they also allow to work towards harmonisation. Now, we know one of the common pushbacks from developers is that this council does it this way, which is easier, or this council does it cheaper, or I'm not doing it here because I don't have to do it anywhere else. And this is where, again, we have that unique opportunity where we can all get our act together, or if we can get a relative level of harmonisation now, it won't be so hard for the developers to push back. And this comes back to those 3 design solutions. Now, one thing that I often get asked about why it's missing is why don't you have a chute for residual waste and then just organics bins and recycling bins on every floor? And councils were very clear about not wanting to prioritise one stream over the other. And we've heard about that elsewhere as well. Once we've got the chute there, the residents will often put their residual waste in the chute and won't worry about most of the other stuff. And there's already enough challenges with FOGO services or FO. So councils were very clear they did not want that to be one of the design solutions that's offered. So where we can, as councils, stick together and use these 3 main design solutions, it reduces that difference between councils. And so developers, architects and everyone else who are designing buildings are seeing the same solutions over and over again within each councils, which will lead to higher levels of adoption. We also need to do some work to change the planning system across the state and also in other states. Speaking to some from some councils and some other state government agencies, there are a lot of similarities across Australia. So we know that at the moment, in some councils, up to about 50% of residential development actually bypasses councils, and it goes through state planning approval pathways. But one area that could really use some work is SEP 65 in the apartment design guide. So we need to do some more work with state government to get those controls updated to address organic waste collection services. And councils will also need to push for that to happen, because at the moment there's no mechanism for review to actually change any of that. But importantly, up to half of our residential development is being assessed that way. We also need to look at ways that we can update bin bays without requiring DAs, and also look at how we get resource recovery considered as standard clauses within these planning documents rather than leaving it up to the progressive councils to put it in there and be the only ones. There's a real role with the guidance that's currently provided to councils and also to developers and the development industry. So the Better Practice Guide is used consistently and often referred to by councils that don't have any of their own controls. That's a state document that will need to be updated. There's also the Waste Not DCP and the Waste Management Template that don't address organics. And there's also a role for state governments to support councils through leadership, training, funding, and other templates that might be of use. One of the biggest challenges that we kept coming back to was data. Now, we've seen a number of trials of food waste collections. We've seen collections rolled out to a small number of buildings across different LGAs. But nowhere has pulled together the data specifically for apartments. So when asking councils about their audit data, a lot of the time they're lumped in with single unit dwellings. They may have done an apartment-specific audit once and never done it again. We've got lots of data around what happens at the initiation stages or 6 or 12 weeks into a trial. But the types of data that councils really need is that ongoing data looking at what the buy-in is in apartments as opposed to single unit households. So how much waste are we diverting when the service starts? How much are we diverting a year later? How much more are we or less are we diverting within high rise as opposed to medium rise housing? And so there's actually a lot more work to be done looking at how much each household, how much each building generates. And this links back to that issue around whether or not we reduce the frequency or the number of red bins, which is really important to know because we need to know how much space we need within these buildings so there's a correct footprint built when the building is developed, because there's no mechanism in most situations to be able to put more space for more bins once we work out exactly how much space that we need. So we need more work to looking at waste generation rates specifically for apartments, but also those buy-in rates and whether they stabilise or whether they change the longer you've had a service in place. And it's too early at this point because the data doesn't exist or the trials or services haven't been going for long enough. We also need to make sure this data is available to everybody and not just in a spreadsheet or a database somewhere that no one sees. And the last thing that we came to as a bit of a conclusion was we consistently spoke to councils who had real problems introducing the service in existing buildings. And we find it with education, and we're finding it when we're looking at the actual specifics of rolling out the collection. You need a bespoke solution for every existing building, and there's no way of providing guidance on what to do with buildings that are already built, because you have to go there, you have to look at what there is, you have to look at the tools that you may have, you have to look at your collection vehicles, and you have to work out how to do it. But new buildings, buildings that are coming online, buildings that are going through the approvals process, that's where councils can have a voice and have an influence to get them built right in the first place. So we would suggest to any council who's looking to roll out their service, or potentially anyone who's currently creating a FOGO mandate, to look at new services first, because this is where we can start to get them implemented a little bit easier. For many of our councils, the number of MUDs they have in their local government area, if they started today and they did it right, they would still not have every MUD covered by 2030. So we do need a lot of time to get that right, and we may be put in a situation we have to decide whether we do it right or whether we do it fast. But if we start looking at our planning controls now, it will take a number of years before we can get the changes made, the changes adopted, and actually start seeing that progress on the ground. So we need to do it right now so that in years to come, they will be built right. And we do need to have a think about how we're going to deal with all of our existing buildings, but that's a problem for another day or a different research project. So very quickly, what we did to help councils was we put together a bit of a guidance document. This is how you can look at your planning controls. We obviously can't change what the state does and what happens outside of our own jurisdiction, but we can lead by getting our own house in order first. So we've put together this guidance document. It looks at some examples of councils who have gotten strategic objectives within their local environmental plans, got some examples in there for you. It's also got some template wording looking at those particular design solutions. You don't have to use it word for word, but again, I would strongly encourage you to look at this if you're looking to update planning controls. Again, if we can start using some similar wording, start using a similar baseline, we're not all going to have the same thing. I recognise that it's never going to happen, but the more that we can get it similar, or the more that we can use the same options, the more chance of success we'll have for getting these buildings built, and less pushback from developers in saying other councils are doing it differently. If you would like a copy of this, happy to give you a copy. It can be downloaded from our website, or you can send me an email and I'll send you a copy. It does talk very specifically about the New South Wales situation, but it is relevant for councils. You just have to, around Australia, you just have to apply it to your own planning system. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Next up we have Talebul Islam from Randwick City Council, who, I have to look up your title, Talebul, isn't that terrible? Strategic Waste Management Coordinator for Randwick City Council, most notably for rolling out the FOGO service, which we got to hear about from Ali on Tuesday, to be talking to us about binless waste storage and collection in Randwick Council.
Thank you, Rebecca. Good afternoon to everybody. Looks, the room is quite full. I didn't expect that after the good dinner last night, and then the last session, last speaker. So I'm privileged. So Randwick Council is implementing a binless collection system in Kingsford or Kensington to Kingsford precinct of the council. So Kensington to Kingsford precinct, I'll refer it to K2K as I go. And what I'll be talking about is a K2K planning strategy. What is that? Why we did develop that? And then what is the implication? And waste collection issues in the conventional waste collection form. So here we are challenging conventional waste collection system. So for that reason, I will spend a minute or two on that, and then binless collection system feasibility study. So we did a feasibility study and what we found and how we went about that. So that is what I'll be talking about. And say binless storage and collection system and mobile vacuum collection truck, how it works, why we need it, and then implementation of localized automated waste collection system in Randwick, first in Australia. So we can be proud of that. And after that, I will show you a short video how the system operates and in action. So let's go. Kensington and Kingsford planning strategy. Why we needed that strategy? As you know, in the big cities like Randwick or like other states, the big cities are under pressure to provide more housing. So we are under pressure to provide more dwellings as well. And the Kensington and Kingsford precinct is a mix of businesses and residential. So it is already established suburb or two suburbs, and there is no way we can expand the footprint. It's the only thing we can go maybe upwards. So the planning strategy had two main objectives: to provide more than 15,000 new dwellings by 2031. So that is a big challenge. And then to provide sustainable living environment for those who are coming and who are already living there. So there is two very specific, difficult objectives to meet. So how we can meet those objectives? So as I said, that we can go only upwards, and the strategy changed the current or existing building height from 8-story buildings to up to 24-story. So what a change. So what does that mean for waste management? So you can just sit and see what will happen. So we have to take action. So this is what we are looking into and see how we will provide the facilities and how we will make changes. Now, before I start this will tell you some of the issues conventional waste management system has and how that will impact on our K2K. So now you have seen the problems. Now we have to have advanced waste management system. So what will be that? And what do we want from that advanced waste management system? Exactly the issues, just the previous slide showed what are the issues. There are myriads of issues with the existing waste management system. So it has impact on, say, visual impact. You have seen 55 bins lined up on the street. How does it look like? And it is a huge impact, visual impact. And then you saw wind is blowing waste and generating litter problem. And also, say, the most important problem here is risk to the stakeholders, being councils or contractors, collector, and the strata managers and strata management staff. For them, it's a huge risk. Pull out the bins, full bins, huge risk for them, and that is happening. We see that. And then taking those bins back is a problem. So we wanted a system which can address those issues and also can give some flexibility in collection timing. So what we do currently, we have a fixed day. On that day, K2K area will be collected. And if we don't start at 6, then we are late. We will be caught up in the traffic. So it's very fixed, regimental procedure we have to follow. Now I'm not blaming that for the sake of blaming, but it is historically where we have ended up with. So I told you that we did do some feasibility study. What system can help us? So broadly speaking, we found that some automized system of collection we need to introduce. So automatic waste collection system, there are 2 automatic waste collection systems. One is centralized, the other is localized. The centralized is being implemented in Maroochydore, maybe you people have heard, in Sunshine Coast. But what it requires a long piping infrastructure covering the whole area. And it requires a collection center. So collection center means all the waste will be sucked in at that point, and that will be deposited in big containers, and then the containers will be removed. So that is more or less another waste infrastructure. Getting approval, that becomes difficult in an established precinct. So in this established precinct, this system is not feasible. So it's suitable for greenfield development. Ours is not greenfield development, it's already established. A lot of services are underground or above ground. And specifically, K2K precinct is affected by the light rail. So it has complicated waste collection system even more. So we then looked into localized waste collection system. Localized collection system also requires piping network, but much shorter than the centralized one. And this system can serve or can be developed for 1 building or 2 buildings, 3 buildings, depending on the situation. So not maybe 10 buildings. So there are some limitations, but it is appropriate for established areas. for new development. And the collection point is not centralized collection point. A collection point is near or within the development, and the truck will come and will collect. So how truck will come and will collect, we'll get to that in a second. So let me take you through a few components of the system, the localized automated waste collection system. This requires inlet points. The inlet points can be in the building or outside the building. On the picture, left-hand side top, you can see it is outside the building, and below that, again outside the building, inlet point. Then residents can come out of the building and put their rubbish there, and neat and tidy. And on the right-hand side, you can see is a chute system, and chute system is also suitable for such new system, and you use the chute inlets for depositing your waste. And then waste storage. So in this system, waste is not stored in bins. The waste is stored in a tank. So the tank can be vertical or horizontal. And the tank is linked to the chute or outside inlet or outside the building inlet system. And then the piping network for that system. The waste stored in the tanks need to go to the outlet point where the truck can dock and collect. So for that, there is a pipeline system coming out of the tank and goes to the outlet point. So you can see the pipeline is hanging on the ceiling. So it doesn't take any space. So it depends where and how you want to put it. And sometimes when, say, the pipeline is carrying waste during the time of collection, it can generate some noise. So if it is passing through a sensitive area, then you can insulate them to reduce close to zero of that noise. Now, outlet points and docking station. So the outlet points can be raised above the ground or can be below the ground. You can see left-hand side, the top is raised above the ground, and on the right-hand side, you can see the truck is connecting to that point, and it will collect. And the bottom left is the below ground system or outlet point. You can see it is like a stormwater pit just with a lid on the top. And on top of this, people can walk. So it doesn't take any space and it is safe there. And now the truck, what truck can service those systems? It is not a standard truck, it is purpose-built truck. And the truck has control system within itself, and that a compartment for waste storage, and a flexible arm which can move and can attach to the outlet point and collect. So you can see it is happening there. Now, following the planning strategy, Council did develop LEP, DCP, what Amanda has been speaking. I won't go in depth of those. So we did develop LEP and DCP, and from the DCP, controls require that any new development in that precinct will require to implement localized automated waste collection system. So that is tying up the developers. And we are implementing stage by stage that system. Currently, we have 18 development applications to develop 457 dwellings with 2,373 student accommodation rooms. And out of those, 4 have been approved and they're under construction. And we are expecting full system to be implemented by 2025. Collection will start. And as I promised you, I'll show you a small video to see how it works. This adapter is used for below ground outlet. The noise you can hear, it is not from the system, it is the wind. When I was taking the video, it was very windy.
Ventilation pipes. Waste pipe is here.
Thank you for your attention the last day.
All right, we've got about 6 minutes left for questions, so let's make it a quick fire round, yeah? Has anyone got a question for any of our speakers? Yep, have we got a mic?
Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Do you think that community gardens and composting systems feeding those gardens could play any part in future developments?
Yes, but I think there's a limit to what you can achieve with them. So I think when done well, it can be very, very successful. In some communities, it's not going to work, and it's never going to work in 100% of situations. So in terms of, there was a presentation yesterday on composting in high-rise buildings, and I think certainly we should all be trying to do that first. But many people have been trying to do that for many years, and we've only made certain gains. So we have the mandate, we can't ignore it. We wait and find out the exact details of what that means for apartments, but we shouldn't stop looking at backyard composting and gardens and other applications in the meantime, but it's not going to work in every situation.
Hi, Guada from Armidale Regional Council. My question to the panel is what is the role of incinerator systems, particularly in high-rise dwellings, and where are the opportunities there for processing organics through water treatment? Is that something that was considered in any of your research?
We didn't look at that. Some councils have looked at that. It is a little bit of a changing beast at times. Sydney Water have had their position. I believe they're starting to change their position. And there's certain precincts that are looking at going back to that. I think typically because of some of the costs, it's been high-end and more sustainable developments that have seen that option be put on the table. It's not something we should rule out, but I'm not sure that we're there yet. But I would certainly be looking at particular developments around Sydney and how they progress so that we can take those learnings and then look at what we can do with that, because when we look at participation of FO or FOGO services, that very much could be a solution for some of the barriers in some circumstances.
I guess I'm not trying to be curly, it's just in regional, we run our own water treatment, so I'm just wondering, is there, opportunities there, and does it compare on when you have those partnerships in place?
Yes, just I would like to add a little bit, a comment from Amanda. So, yeah, this is not impossible, but in Sydney context, that sort of processing is not welcomed by Sydney Water. We have been trying this for many years, but they would oppose because their infrastructure is quite old and they're struggling at this point in time. They do not want to overload the system, but say in other areas may be possible.
Thank you.
Guada, I think if you're running the infrastructure and you can manage the organic load and you can control that whole system, you've got a much better chance of looking at that as a successful system.
Hi, Joe from Bayside. This question's for Talebul. Good presentation, firstly. Thank you for sharing that information with us. A couple of questions. Number one, are you able to share the capital upfront cost for something like that and the maintenance ongoing? And then the second part of the question is, have there been any risk considerations around, obviously with traditional collections, we have hot loads at the moment with lithium batteries and fires and things like that. Has that been a consideration from a risk management perspective with that kind of a system?
Yeah. So the first question, the cost. Here, the cost of implementation is going to the developer because he's part of the building. So he's, say, $100 million building they're developing, maybe about $1 million. It depends where it is located. About $1 million is the cost of implementing such system. The second part, yes, that has risk like any other equipments in the building, and that was considered. And I have visited Copenhagen. I have seen in operation, and I asked the same question, whether there was an incident, any fire. No evidence. And the system is used in various parts of the world. Say in Scandinavia, highly used. Say Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and around us here, Singapore, they are using, and some cities of Korea, and China is starting using this. And in the Middle East, a lot. So that gave us a bit of comfort that risk can be managed. Thanks. So,
Oh, we've got time for one more. Lucky last.
Thanks, Jennifer from Behaviour Works. Gordon, just wanted to check about your CurbCycle. It's interesting, we get asked this question all the time from a behaviour point of view, and our answer is always, it depends. Yes, if, no, when kind of context. But I'm really interested in what you were saying, that I think on average you said about a 10% uptake in the councils that you're working. And just really interested, because great to see what you were saying about the participants. Have any of your trials enabled you to do research with the non-adopters, the 90% who didn't?
Yeah, thanks. That's a great question. You're quite right. The 10% is the average we're finding, and I guess it's the more sustainably minded community. The correlation goes to, in fact, areas, for instance, Terrigal and Avoca were very high, centre of Newcastle very high, whereas we were finding areas that were outside that sort of higher price bracket weren't participating to the same extent. As far as work with the non-participants, to be quite frankly, we haven't gone there at this stage, and it is completely, what's right with it, our supposition is that when we're in a position that we want more material, then that's where a reward system can really come into it. But I'll be frank with you, we haven't done, the base work to understand what would the rewards be, what would be the participation, but it's something we can turn on, and obviously once we've got processing up and running that's adequate to take it, that's certainly what we want to do, is look at what are really effective rewards to be providing, and how we can guide that behaviour to give more and better material that we're really seeking to get through that supply chain. So, but to be frank, that's something we haven't undertaken as yet, looking at the 90% non-participation.
Excellent. All right. Can you join me in thanking all of our presenters? Now, we've got afternoon tea, of course, now, so please go out and enjoy a little break. Just a reminder that at 4 o'clock we've got the Collaborate session with Kate McQuillan, so yeah, make sure you check that out. Thanks, bye.